Hey, welcome back to World Entertainment, and let's talk a little bit about episode 3 of The Last of Us, the live action TV adaptation of the game, because it's been getting praised on one side, but criticised on the other. But of course, the criticism end of things is getting pushback. Oh, yous are bigots. Oh, you're homophobic. Oh, this and that. All the key buzzwords. Well, an interesting twist has happened because the director of said episode, Peter Ho, who is a gay man himself, has come out and said The Last of Us director says he wanted to trick viewers into watching gay romance. That's right, for all you people pandering saying it's the best episode of television you've seen in years, if not the best episode you've seen in television ever, you're tricked and you fell for it. He says sometimes you have to sort of trick the rest of the world into watching these things before they're like, oh my god, it was two guys, I just realised. Horde said in an interview with Inverse, I think then they might understand that it's all real. It's just the same love. Here's the issue people had with episode 3. I'm sure there was a couple of bigots out there, actual bigots who were like, gays, boo. The reality is, the people who rejected this episode, or maybe not rejected it, but criticised it, myself included, I am watching the show. I'm not reviewing it. I may do a big breakdown of the season when it's finished, but I am watching it. I'm not loving it. I'm not hating it. But the issue with episode 3 that everyone seems to be having, myself included, is that it just completely stopped the story of Joel and Ellie altogether. And it was only the 3rd episode. In the end, you realise the episode meant nothing. It didn't add to the story. It didn't move the story forward. They're not even mentioned again. So what was the point? Now, I look at the episode and my reaction to it was, it looks beautiful. It's shot beautifully. They've all been shot beautifully and look great. The acting was on point. Nick Offerman was great. I don't know the guy's name who played Frank, but he was good. The two of them had actual chemistry together. Something that Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey don't seem to have. Probably because the way she's playing Ellie, it's just, it's not working for me and for a lot of people. Here's where it falls apart. It's a gay utopia where nothing happens, nothing moves forward, and there's no danger. There's not even conflict between the two. Now, anyone that knows the game knows that Bill is gay. You know, there's no one saying, oh, they made him gay now. No, he was always gay. And it's alluded that he had a relationship with Frank. In the game, Frank was bitten by one of the infected. And he hung himself. Maybe I shouldn't say that on YouTube. It's too late now, but he self-deleted. But he left a note, and the note directly says that he hated Bill. At least he grew to hate Bill because Bill wouldn't leave. Bill, of course, set all the traps and stuff, and one of the great parts of the game people really love is that you have to navigate through the traps. And then there's great interaction between Bill and Ellie, which of course you now are never getting. Why? Well, because in this gay utopia, and I'll get to why it's a gay utopia, Bill and Frank self-delete together before Joel and Ellie arrive. So the episode starts off, well, it doesn't actually start off, but their story starts off at 2003, where we see Bill in his bunker. He's basically a doomsday prepper while the town is getting evacuated by the military. And of course you realise prior to the flashback that they're not actually being evacuated, they're being brought out and executed. He is ready to take on the military. And this is one of my big gripes with this episode. He is ready to take on the military. He's sitting there with his gun, getting ready because the soldier is in his house. As soon as the soldier, he comes bursting out and he's ready to take them on. He's like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere kind of style. He immediately turns gas back on because everything gets turned off. He turns the gas back on at the mains. Just willy-nilly, just walks in, gas is on for the next 20 years. He gets food, he gets all the equipment to build more traps. He sets up traps, fences around the perimeter, all that good stuff. He's eating his dinner, he sees the screen, the alarm goes off, he looks at the screen, and there's one of the zombies, the infected, who hits one of his traps and shoots itself. He laughs and says, it never gets old. That then leads to Frank. His alarm goes off, he comes out. One of the big holes he dug, Frank had fell into. This seems to be only the next day, maybe the same day. He takes Frank out of the hole and tells him Boston is in that direction. Frank is apparently looking for Boston. So Frank's response is, oh, well, I'm starving. And Bill is like, well, you'll find food in that direction. He's like, well, come on, like blah, blah, blah. And Bill ends up going, well, if I feed you, you'll tell people and then they'll all be coming here and I'll have to feed them. And Frank goes to lie to him and then goes, oh, well, you know I'm not a good liar. So he immediately brings him in and feeds him. So straight away you're like, okay, for Doomsday Prepper who's about to take on the military, this makes no sense. Why would you just opt to bring him in and feed him? Then Frank finishes his meal and says, I'll leave once I play the piano. He sees the piano and he's like, I've been eyeballing that since I got here. So he goes, starts playing the piano. Bill doesn't like what he's playing. He's like, no. So he makes Bill play the piano. Bill plays it and sings the song. And then the two of them make out. And then Frank says, Bill, go take a shower. And Bill immediately leaves to take a shower. We've just been introduced to a guy who's ready to take on the military. He gets one kiss off a dude and he's willing to leave this guy in his house on his own downstairs. Doesn't quite make sense, does it? We do get a flashback of Joel with Tess meeting Frank and Bill, setting up the arrangement, and Joel tells him, you know, you won't be safe here, raiders will come. Of course, that night, raiders come. This is the only threat that happens in the entire episode to Bill and Frank. The raiders come. Once. In 20 years, they arrived once. Bill stands out in the middle of the street, shooting at them. Doomsday Prepper, a guy who's highly skilled and organised. But he's standing out in the middle of the street, shooting at them. He gets shot. Frank brings them in, and of course Frank asks, what are we going to do about the rest of them? And he says, don't worry about them. The traps will take care of them. So why are we out there in the first place? Oh, that's right. Because the show had to build in some sort of tension. Some sort of stakes. But there was none. Then we go to the next scene and Frank is in a wheelchair. Frank has some disease. They never state what the disease is, but he has a disease where he's lost the use of his legs. He's losing the use of his hands and his arms. He's basically becoming paralyzed, and that's why he decides to self-delete. It spans 20 years. The only argument these two seem to have had, and it's barely an argument in the episode, is Frank wants to get a few tins of paint. That's it. That's the level. So, a gay utopia. They were... No infected ever approached them. They were raided, or tried to be raided, once. And for no reason, Bill stood out in the middle of the road, shooting at them, out in the wide open, for him to get shot. And they never argued. Wow. How did that move the story forward? And by the way, the part where they're like, no, infected will come, that we never see infected come, or more raiders, like, almost every day. The little town they're in is right next to a city. There's a wide shot, and you see a city right next to them. They should basically be inundated with raiders and infected, and it never happens. Because they just want to tell you these two are in a loving relationship. Oh, look at them having finely cooked rabbit and perfect wine. It added nothing to the show. Zero. It did not move the story forward at all. And the fact that the two of them self-deleted, basically it was the case of, you're burying your gays. And they probably went, oh, well, we can't bury one and leave one alive. We better take the two of them out. What did that do for the story? Nothing, because now we've moved on. They haven't been mentioned again. The only thing that was mentioned was in the 4th episode, Ellie's getting into a sleeping bag and she goes, hey, this doesn't actually smell bad. And Joel goes, that must be Frank's. That's it. That's the only mention of them two again. And it's not even them two. It was Frank's name. That was it. That's not homophobia or being a bigot. That is pure and simple. We looked at an episode. We went, this episode has stopped this story dead in its tracks. And for what? Just so they could put in a gay romance. Where it would have been more interesting if they kept them maybe alive and had them interact with Joel and Ellie. Maybe they could keep popping up from time to time. But no, they just wanted to do a big virtue signal episode. And people fell for it because the director has come out now and said, I had to trick people into watching it. Yeah, so stupid. So very stupid. Anyway, with that, I'll leave it there for this one. So cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.